Andrea Sneiderman is a free woman today, released from prison, a fact that has many people surprised and many upset on social media. So now let me tell you why she's free today. At one time, she was charged with orchestrating the murder of her husband, Rusty. But on the eve of the trial, the prosecutor dropped those charges. Instead, she ended up getting convicted of hindering, concealment, and perjury. These are not crimes that keep you locked up forever. It was the prosecutor's choice. And now the woman who acted so strangely on the witness stand at the trial of her former boss, Hemi Newman, the man who murdered her husband, well, she can go home.
Who would think that this would be happening right now? Whose boss kills someone else's husband? I think I'm a pretty nice person. I'm a very caring person. This was his way of working his masterful manipulation way into my life. And he stared at me and looked at me, and it was him the whole time. In my home?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, they were recording me in my home.
Yes, ma'am.
That's fantastic.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, great, play it. Excuse me. I'm a pretty wholesome individual.
Miss Sneiderman, you talked yesterday.
I'm sorry, can I be called Mrs. Sneiderman, or is that not against the court rules? What is the question? It was unfathomable and unbelievable that it could be him. Someone that proposed to care about me, care about Rusty, care about my family, be a normal guy, be my boss, and he murdered my husband.
Andrea Sneiderman free. Let me walk you through the timeline so you kind of get an idea for what happened during the course of this case. We go back to the winter spring of 2010. Sneiderman met Hemi Newman and went to work for him at GE Energy. Then in the spring and fall 2010, the two went on several, quote, business trips together. Then November 18th, 2010, Rusty Sneiderman gunned down, dropping off his children at a daycare parking lot. Hemi Newman arrested January 4th of 2011. March 15th, 2012, Newman, convicted of malice murder, sentenced to life in prison. And then, later that summer, August 2nd, 2012, I remember that day, Sneiderman arrested and charged with 16 felonies, including 2 murder counts and aggravated assault. But then, August 21st, 2012, Sneiderman released on a bond, $500,000, house arrest. July 26th, 2013, the murder and assault charges dropped against Sneiderman, and that was by the prosecution, their own decision to do so. August 19th, the jury convicts Sneiderman of 9 of the remaining 13 counts, and the judge sentences her to 5-year sentences minus the 1 year of time served, and now she is out. So let's bring in today's legal dream team to talk about Andrea Sneiderman. And joining us, we've got Wendy Patrick, Deputy District Attorney, joining us from New York. Ashley Merchant, great criminal defense attorney here in Atlanta. And, of course, Mike Brooks, HLN law enforcement analyst. Mike, should the folks in Dunwoody and Metro Atlanta be concerned today that Andrea Sneiderman is out?
No, I think she's probably going to be staying
safe?
in her house. Yeah, I think we're safe. I think we're safe. Because everybody knows who she is. So wherever she goes, somebody's going to be hey, there she, she just got out of jail. Did you know what she did to Rose?
A lot of murmurs.
A lot.
Okay, let me ask you this, Ashley. Should we be surprised that she's out?
No, I am not surprised at all. We have very strict laws and a lot of mandatory minimums in Georgia. I practice here in Georgia. We've got a lot of people serving 25 minimum without parole. We don't have room for people. This is a nonviolent offense. They are paroling people on nonviolent offenses left and right. And the fact of the matter is we can't afford to incarcerate that many people, so we're going to pick the violent ones. We're going to pick the sex offenders. We're going to pick the people that actually picked up a weapon and went, face-to-face with someone else. And so people like this, they're getting out on parole.
Now, Wendy, you're a prosecutor. Let's talk about this. You've got charges, murder charges. Then on the eve of trial, these charges are dropped. Then we find out afterwards that the jury, during their deliberations, was actually talking about her potential involvement in the murder plot. Was it a mistake here by prosecutors to not pursue, be afraid to lose a case?
You know, prosecutors have an ethical duty to only charge and proceed on what they can prove. And this case is typical in that sometimes there are charges that, as investigation continues, aren't so strong. And if they don't think they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, they have to dismiss it. They found something to keep her on, and sadly, it wasn't something that carried the amount of time the public would have liked. But this is an emotionally charged case, a love triangle gone bad, murder. And I think the public reacts a lot to the underlying charges, even though we understand that's not what she was convicted of.
Yeah, and the public is still, they still talk about it, Mike, and folks here, because, you know, you bump into people, everyone wants to talk about the case, anyone that lives down here. She contacted Hemi shortly after the murders. There were certain facts that I thought, hey, I could take that and run with it. You know, it seemed to me it was enough to make a strong, legitimate argument to the jury.
I thought so too. You know, the fact that she was speaking with her father-in-law about him being shot before she even knew anything when she was on the way to the Atlanta Medical Center.
And the jury was convinced. She still denies it, but the jury was convinced that there was a romantic relationship here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the evidence proved that there was, and that's why they were able to convict her on what she got convicted of. But, you know, I mean, still, one of my doctors is right across the street from there, and everybody in Dunwoody still talks about this case, even today.
Ashley, were you surprised at that moment when the prosecutor said, not going forward? All this time they were going to pursue the murder charges. Then on the eve of trial, they back off.
I wasn't that surprised because I know the people that were involved in the case, and some of the prosecutors that had been involved in the case and believed in it very strongly had left that office and had gone. It was an election year. There were different DAs elected around the metro Atlanta area, and so there was a lot of shifting of district attorneys, the actual ones that tried the case.
So some of the team that originally brought the charges and was going to pursue was out of the office, and whoever was left didn't feel that it was strong enough.
Well, I don't know if the people who were left, I think it was the elected official who didn't feel that it was strong enough and didn't want to face that. It was right after Zimmerman. We've got to remember, it was right after George Zimmerman was acquitted on national TV. And so I don't think that office wanted to risk that happening. And so they went with the sure thing. They went with what they knew they could get, and they knew they could get her on perjury. And they didn't want to leave the rest to chance.